I just did a video, and I don't usually listen to my videos, but it really sucks, so I'm thinking of redoing it. I've noticed whatever video I does, case in point, sucks. Can't even speak, just for one example. Well, I should maybe redo this video. The first half of it sucked. This was how to measure the speed of light in a straight line, because virtualism, or whatever, that cool guy with the cool, interesting videos, he said it's never been done. The speed of light has never been measured. And he said that a good true catch title. The speed of light has never been measured in a straight line, because whenever you change the cameras and timers to position it, to measure it in a straight line, the distance you move the camera actually changes its time with this, just by moving it the same amount that the speed of light would change the time. So it can't be measured in a straight line. It can be measured at a round trip, but no one has ever been able to tell if it's going quicker in one direction or the other. No one has found in hundreds of years, all kinds of smart characters, a way to measure the speed of light in a straight line. So I figured out a way to do it, and funny thing, it's very simple. They're definitely smarter than me. They're probably just too busy doing math to see something very obvious. So I don't know, to anyone listening, why did an idiot like this guy who's talking that you're listening to come up with a solution? I don't know, man. Just dumb luck. You know, my mind's tired from a bunch of other stuff I've been working out, but not this stuff so much. So I don't know, the dumb luck, you could call it, the clear-minded luck to come up with this. It's very, very simple. So that's why I have this simple trick. So at any rate, where was I? Virtualism described in a cool video. It's impossible to measure the speed of light. Why no one has ever measured the speed of light. Catchy title. What it means is no one's ever measured it in a straight line, and no one has ever measured the actual speed of it. They don't know if it always goes in a round trip, and they don't know how fast it's going in which direction. It's guessed, and it likely is, who knows, that it's going the same speed in every direction, but no one's been able to prove that. They only have ever been able to measure the speed of light on a round trip, and then once they do that, they don't know if it's going 10 times as fast one way as the other, or twice as fast one way or the other. So I figured out a way to measure it in a straight line, and it's very simple, relatively speaking, and all that. What the hell was I talking about? I don't know. So this trick, anyway, I'll get to it, because this video has two parts. One is how to measure the speed of light in a straight line. That way you can make sure it's the same speed in every distance, every direction. What do you do? Who knows? Maybe there's some value to that. Then the second part of the video we'll be using time to measure the speed of light, and then ironically the second part of the video will be to say that there's no such thing as time. But anyway, you can use time as a measuring device by the same way we always have, just that it's not what we thought. We can use the word time, but time isn't what people think it is, because it actually doesn't exist. But never mind that. That's part 2 of this video. The trick is an oblong triangle. For starters, you have to do a test to make sure that horizontal movement, and for example, this triangle could be turned sideways, and I guess if you do this test thoroughly in all kinds of directions, including changing the vertical with the horizontal, testing different vertical directions. But starting this example of this trick, if I may call it that, with testing the horizontal distance east-west, I'll just call it left-right. It's all left-right, isn't it? Even if you turn sideways, you look at the sideways triangle, if you're sideways, it's left and right. Clever. So left-right doesn't really mean anything in particular, but let's just say there's 2 buildings, and you're going to measure the distance east to west, which I'll call left to right, because let's say you're looking at a triangle, just picturing it like a triangle. And the idea is to put a camera with an atomic clock and a timer. You shine it. You have the buildings be about 5 times as tall as they are far apart. The buildings are the same height, with a 45-degree mirror on the top near edge of each building, pointing at the other mirror and pointing back down at this measuring atomic clock light beam creating gizmo in the middle of the street, preferably where no one will run you all over, or run it over, or run me over if I'm doing it. And you shine the light in a triangle, which sounds like nothing that hasn't been done or tried a million times before. They say all triangles and circles won't work because they still have the same east to west distance compared to the west to east distance. They're trying to measure west to east, say, but then on the diagonals, no matter how long the diagonals are, or if it's a circle, or whatever kind of diagonals you use, any kind of diagonals, the east-west distance comes out exactly the same as the west-east distance you're measuring, and then you're just measuring a round trip no matter what kind of weird gizmo shape you make. But this trick is different, and I'll tell you why in a second. So you have two buildings about at least five times as tall as they are far apart, and that's why, by the way, that oblong triangle is the trick to this trick. And this is the trick. Before I get into the trick, the first thing you have to do is make sure that, for example, the east-west or left-right movement does not speed up or slow down the diagonal movement. Basically, the diagonal movements, two diagonal movements 5 times as long as the horizontal left-right, east-west movement, is actually 10 times as far in total. And this check requires that the speed of light's not 10 times as fast or more in one direction, so it's kind of iffy, but you could get a longer triangle or whatever. Someone else thinking something clever. This triangle is the trick, and I'll tell you why it works in a second. The first thing I have to do is make sure that east and west movement or left-right movement does not speed up the diagonal movement. And how you do that, very simple. You figure out how quick it goes 100 feet to the left or the right. Then you have, I don't know, a vertical line the same length as the diagonal. And you see how many millionths of a nanosecond it takes that vertical distance. Then you move the camera from right underneath the mirror or whatever. You can do the round trip check with this vertical check. Check it vertically round trip, and I call it LT, light time. Let's say it's 5 LTs up, 500 feet up, straight up, vertically straight, and 500 feet back to the camera. That's 10, 100, 1,000 LT feet. And you have the time for that. Then you take that same exact distance and you move it. You move the camera or the mirror up on top of the building, down maybe to the top of the building rather than being on like a raised thing 30 feet or whatever. And then you put it right on the edge of the building so that the diagonal movement to the camera timer gizmo in the middle of the street is the same distance as the vertical. And you check that same diagonal distance as the north-south distance. You do the same thing on the other side of the other building, the east building as the west building. And make sure the straight up and down diagonal distance is the same distance, the same time, as the diagonal distance to the camera in the middle of the street between the two buildings, round trip. Then you can see from that the east-west, left-right movement is not speeding up the diagonal some distance any more than the straight up and down distance. So you can deduce and we'll be deducing the left-right movement at the end of this when we get to the trick in a second. You can deduce from that the left-right movement, which obviously should probably take much less time than the diagonal movement, the 50 feet left-right movement, 50 feet worth of left-right, east-west movement on a diagonal going down 500 feet, would obviously take much less time probably than the 500-foot diagonal. So, but you make sure you know how quick 50 feet would be in LT time by just taking taking any number and dividing it into 50 feet. And then you check the vertical 500 feet and back to the camera and the diagonal 500 feet and back to the camera. And if it is the exact same time diagonal as it was vertical, then you know from that the horizontal distance is not, which would take like 1/10 the time probably, is not speeding up the diagonal distance any quicker than the vertical distance was before. You know from that the horizontal speed, I meant to say, and I'm saying, does not speed up the diagonal distance. Now we get to the trick, which I think I remembered what it was before. Back to the cameras, the 45-degree cameras at the nearby edges of two equally heighted 500-foot buildings with the atomic clock laser or light creator camera timer gizmo in the middle between the two buildings and the ground. Shine the light up at one of the mirrors, which is pointed at the other mirror, which points back to the camera, and time it. Take the total time. If it's 500 LT up, 100 LT over, and 500 LT down, although I like the number 1,000, so make it 450 feet up vertically. Maybe it's 500 feet diagonal, whatever. No, that's not good. That's still not 1,000 feet. Whatever. You make it so that it's 1,000 feet total, but 100 feet between the two buildings. This is just to simplify the math. In short, this triangle, shining the light up at one mirror, over to the other mirror, and back to the thing, total round trip oblong triangle distance is 10 LT or 1000 LT, while the horizontal distance is 100 LT. And start off turning it to the left mirror, goes to the right mirror and back, and then shine it up to the right mirror, goes to the left mirror, and come back and time it. There's a good chance it'll be the same, but it might not be. I don't want to knock on wood and say it won't be. If it's different, that's really weird. Then there's a lot of measurements to be made, and who knows why light is traveling at different speeds in different directions. That kind of sucks. But life is like that. Better be lucky the day anyone tries this. Better not try too hard. It's bad luck. So, if they're all the same in both directions, then the light is traveling the same east to west, and then gets two other buildings and try it north to south, and then get some diagonally positioned buildings and so on, then turn the triangle sideways, try the different directions vertically and horizontally. And if it's all the same, then, well, not a huge surprise, then light travels at the same speed in every direction. Whoop-de-doo. Here's why the trick works. So if anyone's still listening, people who are like actually, a lot of smart guys good at physics. Why would this work when it's already been proven that it's the same counter distance from left to right or from east to west, blah, 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 with the triangle? So it's still, the clocks and the timers would change with the exact movement of left to right or right to left if the speed of light is different in those directions. Here's why. Because as we just tested, the left-right movement, which is quicker, or probably quicker anyway, as the vertical movement, does not affect the vertical speed, the vertical time, the 500 LT on each long diagonal above the oblong triangle. And so if one speed left to right is different, is faster or slower, the slower thing will not slow down the triangle speed. The faster speed will not speed up the triangle speed. The slower speed won't slow down the triangle speed because it's still happening just as fast as it would have. The faster speed won't speed it up because it's happening just as fast as it would have as we tested. The horizontal speed doesn't affect the vertical speed. And the horizontal speed is much slower than the vertical speed on these long triangles. In both situations, whether it's faster or slower than the other horizontal speed, so it will be the same diagonal speed. The only speed that will be different is the horizontal speed, if it's different at all. So if one horizontal speed is quicker or slower than the other, then the total time, distance, speed, instead of being maybe 1000 LT, might be, 900 LT or something, or 1100 LT. Although there's a good chance it'll just be the same 1000 LT round triangle, oblong triangle distance. And if that's great, if that's it, fine. Now you know the speed of light's the same in every direction. That's how you measure the speed of light. I don't know why I'm babbling about it, but because I heard people were trying to figure it out for like 200 years, so I thought I'd flop a video out. Now to get to the other part of the video, this will bother some people if they really consider it, because it's a doozer, sort of like. It's probably a good thing, but people probably won't want to hear this. This is a real theory. It's not a theory buster. It's just a theory changer. And it's ironic because the next part of this video is time is a hoax. Time is a big, well-believed illusion, a myth. And we've been using time to measure, to do the test for the light speed. It's like time is distance times time is speed. Speed is distance times time, I mean. And fine, we can use time to measure, we still can. Even though it doesn't exist, we can use the old beliefs in what time was to measure things, because time still is a good measuring stick. It's just that time doesn't really exist. It's just a model we've created for, sorry, there's some, oh, so it's behind me. It's just a model we've created for in what order things move and get into what position, what gets to what position before the other one. A thing that we call speed. Maybe one thing gets less inhibitedly and therefore gets there sooner than the other one. And this applies to beams of light in a triangle test, or cars going down the road, or planets rotating, or galaxies rotating, or all kinds of stuff. The speed of light, how much time it takes the light to go from here to there. But it's not time. at that guy. He doesn't even realize I'm making a video. Time is a myth. A lot of people have perceived it as a dimension that moves in one direction for some strange reason. And the fourth dimension. They think it's like some sort of a spatial thingamajig, but that is in a different direction of its own, not within the 3 dimensions or however many. I've heard things up to like 10 or 9, 10 or 12 dimensions. I've heard all kinds of stuff. But even if we say 3 spatial dimensions or whatever, time's supposed to be a dimension that's not within the 3 spatial dimensional directions. It's got its own little direction. It can exist within the 3 dimensions, but it's its own dimension, its own direction, and it only goes forward for some strange reason. I'll explain what that reason is in a second, although it's not time because time's a myth. They see it as this big spatial thingamajig, this big dimension. People often picture it as a really fine energy or a real fine flow of light or a real fine magical mist or something like a real fine like flow of space in its own direction, or its flow of what people call time, but its own thingamajig that moves and flows. That's a good chunk of time over there. A good thing. It flows from the past through the present into the future. A flow of time, and the time flow, the space-time curve. None of it's true. What we have called time for a couple centuries or whatever, since Einstein, and Einstein's right about everything except for what time is. Time should be called shape. What we have been picturing as this time thing, we have only been picturing it this way, is actually the order that things position themselves into a certain point. And any point in time, as we've been picturing it to be, can also be called a sequence of things that get into a certain shape and position. Time, if you think of the position of everything and then the position that it's in within, even within itself, could all be called a shape. And space-time and time should be called a shape or form, and space-time should be called space-shape. People have thought of time as a past that disappears, becomes the present, and the future's not here yet. That's not true. Other people, smarter, more creative people have said the past creates the present, is connected to the present, and then creates the future. The past is gone, but it's become this. The future isn't here yet. That's not true. Even within the belief of time, the past is right here. It is becoming this, has become this within a changing present, and it is the present creator of the future. There's another one that's not causal. The time is the formation of the past into the present is the formation of the past. The past is the present. The past. The past forms the formation of the present, which is the forming of the future, in a non-causal, totally connected way, but it's still within this flow of this ebb of this time that I described, in the ways that we picture it, this cool mystical flow of energy or whatever, or space energy, or dimensional energy. It's not any of those things. There's not a past or a present or a future, because the present is still, we don't realize it, but we're picturing it as this tiny little infinitesimally small chunk of time that involves present flowing into future at a real small chunk that's so small we can say it doesn't count, even though it's still there, flowing through the past into the future. Still this flow of this ebb of this flow of this river of this flow of this thing, this fine, super fine, sophisticated thing called time. It's not true. None of it's true. There's no such thing as time. There's no past, present, or future. I would say there's no present. This eternal now is a really close call to what it is. But as soon as we start saying present or now, people start implying, whether they believe it, whether they're aware of it or not, that there's this past behind it and this future that hasn't formed yet. It's not true. In the present exists the past and the future. It's still within the belief, understanding of time. We have record of the past. We don't know what the future is. That's just because we've recorded the past and we're not perceptive enough to know what the future is. I've met people who say they do know their future. If the present is the creator of the future, we can, if our perception changes enough, see exactly what the future is and what the past is. And it is exactly right here in this present. So this is a more lucid view of time. But this more lucid view yet is that there is no time, because there's always this view that it's this flowing thing through the past, from the past, through the present, into the future. And it's not that. It's not this energy. It's not this dimension. It is only the sequence that things are happening in be it planets moving in the galaxy, comets flying, stars rearranging themselves, galaxy flowing towards each other, black holes, this, that, and the other, beams of light, all the kinds of stuff on Earth, cars going down the street, all the different things happening within ourselves on the micro level, everything. Entropy, forming or not forming, all the things that we say happen in a certain sequence alongside time, and time always moves forward. It's not true. Time is a model we've created to describe how things move. It happens that during each big bounce, things become more, more in line with entropy, which people perceive as more ordered or disordered. They perceive it as more disordered but balanced. That's debatable. It depends what you think the word order means. Balance has got its own order, and I don't know. If people perceive things differently, they would perceive entropy differently. But then things divide up, and then they get a lot of it. They're stuck in gravity. Go back to the next big bounce. But anyway, never mind that. Yep. It all happens in a certain order, and because it happens in a certain order, because of its shape and nature and what it becomes or doesn't become within a certain sequence of events before each big bounce, this, that, and the other, within the realm of gravity, blah, 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 blah. Because of all the reasons things happen in a certain sequence, and we think it's always flowing forward in time. We think entropy and time move together. We think time is always moving forward. It's not like that. The reason we think time is moving forward all the time, strangely, we think it's strange. That sounds strange. But what it really is time is just what we describe as happening, and we label it as time in the order that it happens, so we label that order as time as the sequence of time. We say time is moving forward because everything is moving in the order that it moves, and we call that forward. And we label time in conjunction with that sequence, so we say time is always moving forward. The truth is there is no time. The sequence of things happening always moves forward, because that's the definition of forward, is the direction that they happen in. And entropy can be reversed, and this or that can be reversed, and basketballs can, I'm just yip-yapping about videos I've seen lately. All kinds of things can be reversed. They might not be because it's in their nature to move a certain direction at said time. But they can be reversed. Entropy can be reversed, or whatever, given the situation. And that would also be called forward, because that would be called the sequence they're happening, and that would be called moving forward, and that would be called time moving forward. But whatever happens, it's a sequence of events moving, and that's what we define as forward, and that's what we define, that sequence of events. That sequence of events is what we define this model of time around. So we think this time is always moving forward because we've defined time as that ebby flow, just moving alongside all these things happen. So of course we think time always moves forward. That's why it's strange that it moves forward. That's why it moves forward. The only thing is, it doesn't exist in the first place. It's the model that's moving forward. The truth is, there is no time. There's a sequence of events that happens for a reason, and it's divine, and it's amazing. And there's a reason for it all. I babbled about it in my Tao of Gravity video a little bit, if any of that made sense to anyone. It's other people have babbled about why things are happening. I kind of put it in a retarded voice like you're listening to now that doesn't sound very smart, but in that way I could simplify that kind of stuff and throw it in that video. And it's just wisdom. It's not important. Wisdom will come up. I think I said in that video, wisdom comes up when you relax your mind. Wisdom, the right amount of wisdom pops in. But this yip-yap video is just about too much wisdom, but it's just the fact that time is a complete illusion, although we can still use that which we perceived as time, which is the order that things happen in, speed of light, this, that, the other, the speed, so clear, the sequence compared to everything else, speed, that clocks tick in, this, that, and the other. And within the normal means of time, we can measure stuff, and we can measure the speed of stuff. Only time, I suppose, should be called shime, which just means it's an old-fashioned word, model time, for shape. Space-time should be called space shape, and we should keep in mind that time is a hoax. Oh, I was trying to say hoax, and that guy started rubbing his muffler. Or is it that guy back there? Time is a hoax. I'll say it again. Man, this video is too long. All right, well, that's how you measure the speed of light in a straight line, and why time is a myth, but you can do all the old equations of space-time, just call it space shape. That's all. And I'm sure there's plenty of dimensions out there. Let's let this drag out to 25 minutes. I like that number.